The NFL regular season is in the books, and we are officially in the NFL playoffs. Theo Greminger and Brett Whitefield, 2026 NFL Draft Podcast right here on the Fantasy Points Podcast Network and Fantasy Points YouTube.
What?
Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
Brett, Happy New Year, our first show of the year. We're going to get into it with a mock draft. This is always fun. I feel like the last time we did this, like a lot has changed. There's been some player values moving up, some player values moving down, and most importantly, we know the set order of the NFL draft.
Yeah, the set order is a big deal, right? Because you're kind of just shooting fish in a barrel when you don't really know, and it's definitely changed a lot too. I mean, the order compared to the last time we did this is significantly different. So I'm excited, man. How are you?
No, I'm stoked. I'm really excited. This is probably, I mean, we're recording this middle of the week. We're recording this on a Tuesday, and we're upcoming to like the best football weekend of the year with NFL playoffs, with the college football playoff, and then we're getting all this like action with head coaches getting fired, some really significant ones. So NFL draft, like prognosticating the NFL draft, it's maybe never been harder than maybe this time of year, just because of all the action. We don't know who's going to get hired in some of these head coaching positions. We don't know if that's going to influence like the way these teams draft. So there's a lot of variables, but I think things are starting to settle in where we know a lot of the early entrants. We know a lot of like sort of the players that I think are locked into the first round right now. And we're heading to Senior Bowl again, Brett. That's right down the line here. So very, very excited to do this one with you.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Before we get into the mock draft, though, I wanted to steal the opener here and pick your brain on something. You mentioned the CFB playoff coming up. What is it? We got, is it January 9th? We got some games? Yeah, January 9th.
Yeah, we've got games this week.
Yep. I wanted to talk to you about quarterbacks a little bit. And I stumbled on this random theory. I was looking at the remaining four teams, and I'm going, Dante Moore, UCLA, Fernando Mendoza, Cal, Trinidad Chambliss, Ferris State, Carson Beck, Georgia. All four quarterbacks are transfers. You go to the whole playoff at large. I think only of the remaining 8 teams, only one of them was with their original team, and that was Ty Simpson, who sat for 3 years before he got to play. So the question I wanted to ask you is, do you think teams are outsourcing quarterback development? With the NIL era we live in, why pay for a 5-star freshman QB that you know is going to suck his first year or two when you can go get a Dante Moore, a Fernando Mendoza, a Jaden Daniels, or a Bo Nix, and he's going to be ready to play for you by year 4 or 5 in his career?
I think you nailed it. I think that it's a way to. It's one of the hardest positions to evaluate. Even at the 5-star level, you're going to see guys miss in terms of their evaluative process for guys ending up in colleges. Even if they're a massive recruit, you've seen plenty of these guys sort of fail. Whereas running back, wide receiver, tight end, certainly offensive line and defensive line, like there's a really solid hit rate for like 5-star guys being potential NFL prospects way down the line. I think with the quarterback position more so than others, there's a lot of factors that go into it. Preparation, the ability to read defenses, and you get those variables out of the way even when you're recruiting like from a level down in terms of competition. So I think it's completely the way to go here. Even now we're seeing a number of programs picking up, like the transfer portal now probably has 5 future NFL quarterbacks out there. I mean, there's a bunch of quarterbacks that are already in the portal that are signing with new teams. And I just think you're taking less of a risk when you, like you said, you get older at the quarterback position, you get more experience at the quarterback position, and you have a sample size of how this guy did against grown-ass men on defense, no matter what the level he's coming from at the college level. So I think this is a trend. I think this is the way things are going to go in college football. You mentioned all those other names. We can go down the line. Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow, Baker Mayfield. There's a million. Cam Ward. There's a million of these guys over the recent years. And I think you also look at, Brett, what NFL teams are looking at the quarterback position. More and more, you're getting guys who had a ton of college starts who are maybe a little bit older. We're way less likely to see Trey Lance type guys, Anthony Richardson type guys being fully embraced by the NFL level. I mean, if you're going to end up seeing one of those guys being a first round pick, it's going to have to be an Anthony Richardson level athlete for the NFL team to sort of look at those guys. I think it matters more for the top levels of colleges. I think it matters more for the top levels of the NFL. And I think you're just talking about quarterback position experience matters.
Totally. That's a great point. It's going to change the way we evaluate guys coming to the NFL, because on one hand, the lack of this steady diet of one offense and learning an offense, learning progressions isn't going to be there for a lot of these guys because they're changing head coaches all the time. But on the other hand, they're going to develop a resiliency to change that I think is probably good, because a lot of these kids, they end up on bad NFL teams and their coaches are usually gone in 2 to 3 years. It happens more often than not for top 10 picks. But with the NIL the way it is, they're kind of building a resiliency for that, where that's actually not that earth-shattering for them anymore because they've already gone through it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the way it is, and the proof is in the pudding. You just nailed it, where at college football teams, NFL teams, even high school teams, football is a copycat sport. When something works for another team, you see a bunch of other teams do it. So I think the fact that you're seeing more and more teams deep into the college football playoff for a second consecutive year using these transfer quarterbacks, I think you're more likely to see this being a trend that continues year in, year out. And I think what's interesting, Brett, is a quarterback who's lost a lot of value over the last month or so, Ty Simpson. The word is that he's declaring for the NFL draft. Some reputable sources are saying that one. He's lost a lot of steam, and when you factor him in, he's 23 years old, but has very few college starts under his belt when you compare him to a Mendoza or even a Dante Moore, for that matter. So your thoughts on Ty Simpson? Is this a player that maybe everything sort of settles in? Can he still be is he a day 2 guy? Is he a day 3 guy? Like, what's your initial lean right now? I don't see the first round in his future, but I do think he's an interesting one. Had some traits that made both of us sort of intrigued. I sort of wish that it would have been actually better for him if he would have just sat out the Indiana game, and certainly sat out some of those Alabama games down the stretch. But your kind of thoughts and feelings about Ty Simpson, the prospect, even with the bad that you've seen recently.
Yeah, I think round 1 is actually still in play for him. It would be late round 1. I'm thinking where, the range Jackson Dart or later went last year. I think about a team like the Rams are going to be picking at the end of round 1 who might want a succession plan for Matthew Stafford. That'd be a good situation for them where he can get some more experience and reps while not playing next year. He has the arm talent and a lot of the NFL caliber. Actually, he has like more NFL caliber throws than a guy like Dante Moore does. I think just at the end of the day, the lack of experience, and then you've seen him crack really under pressure. I don't want to call him a bedwetter like Carson Beck, but similar vibes to Carson Beck to me, were just like in the biggest moments, in the biggest games, he really did not play his best football. And at that position especially, you can't have that. So he's definitely hurt himself, but I think I'm not going to say he's for sure a first round pick, but I wouldn't be shocked if he still sneaks in there at the end of the first round.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how things shake out with him. Again, we're recording this before the Oregon-Indiana game, but Dante Moore, I think I'm leaning towards him being draft eligible, being in the NFL year. So I think it's a 2 quarterback draft, really. And then, like you said, there's a couple of other quarterbacks we're going to keep an eye on when we start our evaluative process heading into the Senior Bowl. Maybe a quarterback sort of breaks through and pushes himself into that first round. Certainly Ty Simpson had some traits that people were liking earlier in the year, and just the recent sample size, we'll see how much NFL teams really value that one. And when it comes down to it, how do they look at the season as a whole? Is there some positive traits they take away? So interesting one with Ty Simpson, but yeah, not a whole lot of help to you if you're a dynasty manager this year looking for quarterback help. I think a lot of and Brett, it's funny because it's a very quarterback needy offseason with very few in the NFL draft. We're going to talk about maybe in the next couple of weeks some pivot options, other ways teams could go with the lack of quarterbacks in this class. But the 2026 NFL Draft Podcast on Fantasy Points Podcast Network. Make sure you subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you're looking at all of Brett's work, all of my work. We got you covered with everything you need to crush this offseason over at Fantasy Points. We're going to have a ton of NFL draft content coming your way and a ton of fantasy football content for the NFL playoffs. It's going to be a really, really strong NFL playoffs this year. Really wide open field, Brett. Do you have a Super Bowl lean right now?
This is the hardest year I can remember where it's just so many teams that are like kind of the same tier. A lot of really good defensive teams, not a lot of strong offensive teams. I think I'm inclined to think the Rams are probably the best team in the league, but they're the 5 seed. They're going to have to go on the road and win some games here. That's not always fun. So I would say probably like Rams. I'm kind of hot on Jacksonville's rise, but I don't trust Seattle because of Sam Darnold. It's really wide open, honestly.
And the LA Rams were my lean as well. I think that the NFC is going to come down to one of those teams, Seattle or the LA Rams. I just get a vibe out of the NFC West. AFC seems a lot more open to me, but yeah, it's going to be a really, really fun one. You could end up with like 2 shock teams in the Super Bowl. Jacksonville's red hot. You got a couple of really red hot teams there, and some really, really fun matchups. Again, make sure you check out Fantasy Points. If you're looking for some gambling edges, some DFS edges, we've got you covered. Fantasy football playoff challenges like at the FFPC, we're covering that as well. We are the edge you need all NFL playoffs long. But Brett, we got to get into it. You said you're taking the 101. I would have been happy going either way. I think I know who I would go with at the 101. I wonder if we're in lockstep here. Las Vegas OTC at the 1 spot. Fired Pete Carroll. They're going to have obviously a new offensive coordinator. Some really exciting young talent on this team, but a flawed team. Had huge issues on the offensive line. Max Crosby up in the air where he's going to play next year. What way are you going with the 101 here?
I'm going Fernando Mendoza, quarterback, Indiana. I think he is the only quarterback in this class worthy of this selection. I think Tom Brady's going to love this guy, and I think Tom Brady's going to have a lot of input in this decision. Everything Brady's always harping on as far as QB play, Mendoza's the best at it by far. Probably the best in the last few draft classes, actually, as far as just being a quarterback and understanding progressions and getting through reads and, footwork, mechanics in the pocket, resetting the offensive line. It's what Mendoza does is really good, and it's really safe. I think he's got a really high floor. There's definitely question marks about the ceiling, but I think ultimately what gives the guy a ceiling is a competitive nature that is going to force him to want to get better year over year. And I think Brady's going to really love this kid. So Mendoza is the 101 in this mock draft.
People are coming out in full force with negative Fernando Mendoza takes where Mendoza's not worthy of the 101, but I don't think it matters. Vegas picks at the 101. They need a quarterback. And if Fernando Mendoza can be a top 15 quarterback in the NFL, an upper half of the league type quarterback, and their organization thinks he can get there, they're going to take him at the 101. So I'm completely with you. Fernando Mendoza, I would have picked the exact same way. I'm at the number 2 spot here. I'm going to stay at the quarterback position, and I'm going to go with Dante Moore being a New York Jet. And I understand that this is a pick, Brett, where they're probably going to have to also bring in maybe a Marcus Mariota type quarterback, like somebody who could give him a bridge type element where Dante Moore, again, 20 years old right now, he might not be ready to start at the beginning of the year. And I think that the Jets, the fact that they also pick at 16 overall, gives them the flexibility to take their quarterback shot here, get a player that could develop into the long-term answer at quarterback, and then figure out what their other team needs about 15 picks later at 16 overall. So I'm going to lock in Dante Moore at the 102, quarterback.
Love it.
Would you would have gone the same way?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more skeptical of Dante Moore, I think, than most, but the arm talent and some of the high level throws downfield are exceptional. So he's definitely going to go high, top 10, and the Jets need a quarterback, so I have no issues with that at all.
Now, your OTC here with Arizona at the 3 spot, another team that I think would pounce on one of these two quarterbacks if they were available. Feels like they might have to get creative at the quarterback spot this offseason. I don't think Kyler Murray's fully ruled out by potentially the next head coach. What way are you going here at the 103?
This might be one of the harder picks, man. I'm inclined to go with an edge defender here, Theo, but Rueben Bain seems to be kind of falling because of arm length, which is the stupidest thing ever. The guy's an absolute baller. I don't know that David Bailey is a top 5 caliber player. I mean, he was this year. Let's do that. Let's go David Bailey here. Texas Tech edge.
Yeah, you've been high.
Yeah,
you were higher on David Bailey than some last time we recorded. Bailey he's moving up draft boards for sure. And Brett, it's not a like theoretical player. It's a player that had a ton of production this year. Arizona needs to get pressure on the quarterback. I do think Arvell Reese would be in the mix here. Upper level athlete, maybe a little bit more room to grow. And they also need help against the run. Arizona needs help in a major ways. They need offensive line help. They need quarterback. But I think Bailey's a fine pick, and I think he's right in the mix. I think if he didn't go here at 3, he would have gone somewhere in the next 5 or 6 picks. So I think you're in lockstep here. What would have been is there another potential player you really would have considered here besides Bain and besides Bailey?
They're in a tough spot. What's weird about the top of this draft, like I look at Caleb Downs, Arvell Reese, and Jeremiyah Love. They're all really good players that play kind of undervalued positions in the NFL, right? So it's really interesting because those are probably the blue chip guys. But yeah, I don't know. I think Bain or Bailey for me for sure.
So I'm going to go shock pick here at the 104, and I think this is an interesting one where Tennessee needs a lot. They could use an offensive lineman. They could use another edge rusher. They certainly could use a wide receiver 1, a top target for Cam Ward. But when you look at just pure talents in this draft, I think this is going to end up being the Jeremiyah Love pick. For better or for worse, I think Tennessee drafts Love here. And if he doesn't go at 4, I think he's going maybe 5, maybe 7. I think he's going to go somewhere in the top 8 picks. And I think Tennessee takes the draft's top offensive talent, and I think they build the ecosystem around Cam Ward in a little bit different way. A lot of people are going to hate this selection, Brett. A lot of people will say the whole running back doesn't matter. You don't take a running back this early. Well, Bijan Robinson was pretty close to this high. Ashton Genty was pretty close to this high. And I think we're just going at like 2 picks earlier here. So Tennessee passes on all these really good defensive linemen, all these strong offensive linemen. They pass on Tyson, they pass on Tate, and they take Jeremiyah Love, running back, out of Notre Dame at the 104.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it personally, but I'm not going to tell you you're wrong and that the NFL won't do it. I think the NFL absolutely would do something like that. So, yep.
Yeah, I think this is about where we're at. I talked to Scott Barrett about potentially, I think, the Giants at 5 might consider him there. So Jeremiyah Love, and then we will make sure. I know that last time we did this, somebody was saying we want to hear the colleges as well, since people are early on in their process. So Fernando Mendoza, Indiana, Dante Moore, Oregon, David Bailey, Texas Tech, and Jeremiyah Love out of Notre Dame. That's our top 4. Brett Whitefield is back OTC with the New York Giants at the 5th overall pick.
Another one. Let's go. Let's go with my guy Francis Mauigoa. Sorry, Mauigoa, offensive tackle, Miami. There's some mixed reviews on this guy. I've seen some people saying he should slide in to play guard. I think that's such a lazy take. We said that it feels like every time a guy doesn't have like pristine tape, it's like, oh, he should play guard. Look at Kelvin Banks. Everyone said this about Kelvin Banks last year. Kelvin Banks is the best rookie offensive tackle we've seen in 5 years. So, yeah, I'm going Francis Mauigoa, offensive tackle from Miami. Slide in to play right tackle for them. Really fortify that offensive line, make the environment for Jackson Dart better.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to end up being one of the top offensive linemen in this draft class. And I think that the fact that he can play guard is ultimately a positive. The guy's a mauler. He's on one of the best teams in the country. He was the best offensive lineman in the ACC this year. And he's, I think, a lock to go somewhere in like the top 12 picks. So I like it. The Giants could go wide receiver here. It would be interesting with some of these really high level defensive talents. Do they lean into a strength? They're certainly not going to double down on the defensive end, but could they lean into the defensive side of the ball? Go with maybe an interior lineman, go with like maybe an Arvell Reese. I think that could be up in the air too. But ultimately, when you have Jackson Dart, let's protect Jackson Dart. Let's get a player like, I think it's a great pick. I'm OTC here at the 106 with the Cleveland Browns. Another team that's going to have to figure out what they're doing at the quarterback position next season. Also, they're going to end up with a new head coach. Kevin Stefanski will maybe be a head coach for somebody else next season, but not in Cleveland. I think all the Ohio State players make sense here, Brett.
Yeah.
Like you're talking about, I mean, literally I could make an argument for Carnell Tate. I think he would make a ton of sense. They need a wide receiver. Harold Fannin led them in everything this year. I think that Caleb Downs, even though it's not a positional need for them, it's just a really like a program changer, a cultural guy in the back of the defense that is going to be a potential Ed Reed. But I think ultimately they go with Arvell Reese. I think they take the player with a ton of potential out of Ohio State, a really, really athletic player, can get to the quarterback, also can hold up against the run. I think there's a little bit of room for growth there. Not necessarily a positional need for them, but it's sort of a best player available type aspect. And like they did with Fannin last year, they stay in state. They take an Ohio State player like they did with Quinshon Judkins last year as well. So I think that's a little bit of a trend for this organization. I'm going to lock in Arvell Reese.
What position is he playing for Cleveland?
That is the question. I think ultimately he's going to be a linebacker, but I think he can be sort of a get to the quarterback guy, play the edge. Again, for Cleveland, do you think that they're going to lean into having to fill a positional need, or is going to be best available? That is up in the air for me. Last year, I feel like they were sort of leaning into best available with most of their selections. I mean, they took Harold Fannin in the third round when they had David Njoku. I think for me, it's just Arvell Reese is a really, really special type athlete and the type of player that maybe you don't want to take him at the 102, but at the 106, I think he makes a lot of sense. What way would you have gone with this pick?
I probably would have gone Carnell Tate there.
Yeah, and I think that would have been a great pick too. So I will go Arvell Reese here, but I think Tate would have made a lot of sense. I think positional-wise, Tate would make perfect sense. He would be immediately their wide receiver one overall there. I think they could have also gone, of course, offensive line. So that was, again, a tough one for me. You're back, OTC. Washington Commanders, Cliff Kingsbury's gone now. This is a team where there have a lot of question marks here, Brett. The offensive coordinator question marks, and then a lot of positional needs here.
Yeah, I'm going to go Carnell Tate here. They also need wide receiver help. Debo is ancient and not the same guy. Terry McLaurin just signed an extension, but he's also not young. I think he's pushing 30 years old. We're going to get younger here with Carnell Tate. Give us a nice deep threat option. Pairs well with Jaden Daniels a lot. That's a really good complement of skills there with McLaurin and Carnell Tate. Two guys that can run routes and win deep at the catch point. So I'm going Carnell Tate. I think he's the best receiver in the draft.
Yeah, we talked about him last time. I had him at the 102 last time we did a mock draft, which I think a couple of people really hated that. But I think Tate's going to be the first wide receiver off the board. I know you've been in that mix as well. A lot of people have Tyson ahead of Tate. I think ultimately Tate is going to test extremely well. It's sort of the squint and see AJ Green type. And with Tate, this would be a perfect landing spot, Brett, because like you said, Terry McLaurin can be the wide receiver one next year, and eventually he sort of hands the torch off to a fellow Buckeye in Tate. So Tate would have advantageous coverages and a quarterback who can get him the ball in Jaden Daniels. So I would love this fit. And I actually think the Saints here at 8 are also in the mix to potentially draft a wide receiver opposite Chris Olave. But I'm going to go away from that. I'm going to go with a player that I know you like a great deal in this draft class. And it's not Rueben Bain, but I'm going to go with Peter Woods out of Clemson. The Saints have been hitting the offensive line in previous drafts. I think they flip the script and go defensive line. Peter Woods was a big-time athlete, very high on Bruce Feldman's freaks list. You think he's going to be an impact player at the NFL level. That's good enough for me. I'm locking in Peter Woods here at the 108 out of Clemson.
Yeah, I love that. And Peter Woods is super high character guy. I think I was secretly hoping out here that the Jets would nab him at 16 for Aaron Glenn. That would have been your pick too, though. So, but yeah, this is a great spot. And he gets to play next to fellow Clemson Tiger Brian Brisset on that D line there. So,
yeah, and I think when you look at Peter Woods, Cincinnati at 10, Dallas at 12, like I think that he's going to go somewhere in this top 12 picks ultimately. I think he's a very clean prospect. And then when you talk about him, I think teams are going to rate him higher than Rueben Bain, even though Bain's been this ultimate production guy. There's some little things with Rueben Bain, like the wingspan, that I think could scare off some teams from this like top 6, top 7-ish range. So Peter Woods off the board at the 108. Who do you want to pick here at the 109? There's going to be a ton of eyeballs on this one. Kansas City picking inside the top 10, an absolute disaster of a season. And I think they're going to have a lot of changes on this team this offseason. Jeremiyah Love would have been a very interesting player if he was on the board here. What way are you going here at the 109?
Let's go. This would be maybe a shock pick. I'm going to go Mansoor Delane, cornerback LSU. They really need help in the secondary, man. And the way Spagnuolo wants to play defense, this is something that has to happen. They got to upgrade their cornerback talent. I think Delane is one of the best complementary. Can play man, can play zone, will come up and tackle a little bit. I think he's perfect for what Spagnuolo wants to do there.
Yeah, I like this pick a lot, and he's my top cornerback in the draft. Jermod McCoy coming off of an injury. Delane transfers from Virginia Tech to LSU. Is an all SEC selection. Really a top level player. So I think Delane is a very clean pick here. I think he's going to end up being ultimately a top 15 selection. And now you have Kansas City getting access to arguably the draft class's top cornerback talent. So I like this one a lot. We are 10 picks in. Just a quick recap. Fernando Mendoza at 1 overall to the Raiders, quarterback Indiana. Jets take Dante Moore, quarterback out of Oregon. The Arizona Cardinals take David Bailey, edge rusher out of Texas Tech. Shock pick, the Tennessee Titans take Jeremiyah Love, the running back out of Notre Dame. The New York Giants take Francis Mauigoa, the offensive lineman out of Miami, an offensive tackle, according to Brett Whitefield, not an offensive guard, but he does have that flexibility. The Browns take Arvell Reese, Ohio State Buckeye, at 6 overall. Carnell Tate, wide receiver out of Ohio State, goes to Washington at 7 overall. Peter Woods, the defensive lineman out of Clemson, goes to New Orleans Saints at 8. And then Mansoor Delane, the cornerback out of LSU by way of Virginia Tech, goes to the Kansas City Chiefs at 9. I'm OTC here at 10. And Brett, I think this is an ideal situation for the Bengals. Bengals need a lot here. They could go offensive line here. They could go with a defensive back. They could go with an edge rusher. I think Spencer Fano would make some sense for them. But ultimately, it's going to come down to Rueben Bain versus Caleb Downs. I could go both ways here. Both of these guys would be massive additions for this defense. But I'm going to go with Caleb Downs here. We're going to stay in state. Again, we talked about the safety position usually being undervalued by a lot of NFL teams. They don't want to use a pick of this level. But Cincinnati needs a difference maker on defense, a player that can be an all-pro caliber player, sort of a chance to stay in their in their division, an Ed Reed, a Troy Polamalu. You talk about these impact safeties and what they've been able to do. Caleb Downs could end up being the best defensive player out of this draft class, and I think Cincinnati takes him, stays in state, he goes 10 overall.
I love that. I think the Bengals would be stupid to not draft offensive line here, but they're probably not going to because they don't seem to ever care about that, and they don't care about Joe Burrow. So Caleb Downs, I'm calling him the secondary solutionary. This guy solves lots of problems. The Bengals figured out their cornerback room last year with DJ Turner turning into like an all-pro caliber corner, and then Dax Hill moving him from safety to corner. He balled out for them too. So adding a true, blue chipper in the secondary at safety or even at nickel corner if they want to play him there, like this is a slam dunk for them. They now have like, I would say 4 out of 5 pieces on that secondary are plus players here now. So Bengals defense kind of slowly taking shape.
Yeah, they were better down the stretch than they were at the beginning of the season, so they could turn things around. I think Cincinnati next year, Joe Burrow being healthy, defense getting a little better, they could get back to the playoffs next year very, very quickly. Your thoughts here, Brett, on the next pick?
I'm going to go Kenyon Sadiq, tight end from Oregon. This is like my 3rd or 4th iteration of doing a mock of some sort, and I've gone Sadiq here on all of them. So he's just perfect. I'm assuming Mike McDaniel's still the coach. I guess we don't know. The coaching carousel doesn't seem to be done yet. I think Miami might be secretly that team in on John Harbaugh. But as of right now, with Mike McDaniel the coach, I think Sadiq is so perfect for what they want to do. From a pass game standpoint, the run after catch stuff, the ability to stretch the field and stretch the seam, the ability to run routes and the quick twitch. But then in the run game, he's a fantastic blocker on the move at the point of attack. You kind of do it all with him. And they have so many run concepts where they're putting guys in motion or pulling guys, traps, counter, power. Sadiq, it would be great as a cross lead player in that system. So I'm just infatuated with this team player fit here in Sadiq with Miami.
Yeah, I love this one. I think Sadiq is a player that we've had projected in this range. I think he's going to be a very enticing option for Kansas City a few picks before if they're looking to add a high-level tight end to sort of replace Travis Kelce. But Miami needs to go receiver here, I think. I think if it's not Sadiq, it could end up being Tyson. Yeah. They are just so limited there at the receiver position. They got a lot out of Darren Waller when he was healthy this year. I love Sadiq. And when you talk about tight ends being drafted in this range, this is right about the same wheelhouse as Brock Bowers, right about the same wheelhouse as Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren. I think it makes sense for Sadiq to go here. Really, really a fun player. And I think people would get excited about this landing spot from a fantasy perspective because he would have an opportunity to operate on a team that doesn't have a big target earner at the wide receiver 2 position. A lot of Jalen Waddle, a lot of Devon Achane, and then Camden Sadiq. I think people get excited about that one. OTC here at the 112. Dallas Cowboys. This is time to click the button. I think this is Rueben Bain time. It's a perfect fit for this defense. Dallas, I think, will like Rueben Bain. There's been plenty of Miami players that have gone to Dallas historically. And I think at 12 overall, it's sort of like just watch the tape with this guy and don't overanalyze him. Maybe he's got a smaller wingspan, but Rueben Bain is an absolute dog. And Miami's playing very, very deep into the postseason. Rueben Bain at 12 overall, Dallas Cowboys, lock it in.
Yeah, for those really concerned about the arm length thing too, you've got recent examples where that has not been an issue. Aiden Hutchinson, Trey Hendrickson, even like Carl Lawson, Jared Verse. These guys were all less than ideal. And we've seen some speculated numbers on the arm length there. I'm not believing anything until I actually see a measurement from the combine. So, but I think he'll come in around 31 and a half, 32, which is right there with Trey and Aiden. And he plays just like those guys, big, powerful, explosive rusher there. So I love this pick, Theo.
Yeah, high motor one and a really easy one. And I think people would love this fit for Dallas. So, yeah, I was thrilled to see him on the clock here. What way are you going with the LA Rams at 13? Brett, LA's got a ton of cap space, 2 picks inside the first round, and we both picked them to win the Super Bowl. A really well-run organization. Seeing them pick this early is interesting. What way are you going to go?
Yeah, I think they did this trade to set up this pick for a quarterback potentially, but there isn't really one here I'm comfortable with, so I don't think they're going to go that direction. I think we probably got to play with the idea of upgrading the offensive line, even if it's a more of a long-term thing than right away. Let's go Spencer Fano from Utah.
I like that.
He's a right tackle by trade. He's got a massive frame. I think he's 6'6", 308. He's a little lean, so it's possible they try him at guard first. But I think he could kick to the left side. I think he's athletic enough. I think he could play inside. I know they like Kevin Dotson just had like an all pro caliber season for them at right guard, so probably not going to play him there. Steve Avila's been pretty good, but ultimately, I think just building the trenches is what smart teams do. LA's always done that, so I'm going to go Spencer Fano here.
I love that pick, and I think he could have gone a few picks earlier. I think that's a really, really good value pick. And you talk about adding a pick that can help the offense right away. It's a terrific pick right there, Brett. I think Fano and Mauigoa for most people. I'm seeing they have him as the top 2 offensive linemen in the draft class. I know that's how I went in my mock draft with those 2 guys, first 2 off the board. There's a couple of other offensive linemen. We're going to say their names shortly, but I think Fano going somewhere in the top 15 makes a lot of sense as well. Baltimore at 14. This is a tough one, Brett. We got a new coaching staff for the first time in 18 seasons. You're going to have a new head coach on the sidelines in Baltimore. I hit up my guys at Baltimore Beatdown, which is a really good team website for the Baltimore Ravens. I usually get in those guys' DMs when I want to know something. I said, who do you want as your head coach in Baltimore next year? They want Clint Kubiak. I don't know if that's the way Baltimore is going to go, but my guy wanted Clint Kubiak. I think a lot of people want Clint Kubiak at this point. I don't know which way. I don't know if the head coaching decision is going to have a massive impact here. My only thought is, do they want to get more pass catchers? Do they want to go with a defensive lineman here? It really seems wide open here, Brett. What do you think is the positional need for Baltimore you lean into? I know this is my pick, but I'm just curious which way you would lean into for this team.
Yeah, I think pass catcher, they're okay. I mean, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, and then they're pretty locked into tight end as well with Mark Andrews extension and possibly an Isaiah Likely extension. For me, I think they got to get better on the offensive line. They've kind of ignored it a little bit. I know they've thrown some day 3 picks at it here and there. I think Andrew Voorhees and Emory Jones and Carson Vinson. I think they got to go in the trenches here. I don't know exactly who.
This is who I had in my mock draft. I had Ola Ioane in my mock draft here.
There you go. So
yeah, I think we're sort of in lockstep here.
Yeah, Ola Ioane.
I do think. Go ahead, Brett.
I was just gonna say he, primarily a left guard.
But I do think Jordan Tyson's enticing right here. This draft. I think Tyson will be in consideration for him. But I think Ioane's it's super clean. He's probably the best true guard in this draft class. Penn State offensive lineman, another really high-level brute force type guy on the interior. All the athletic testing numbers for him are going to be really, really good. A lot of people really like Ioane. So I think this is no matter what their system is next year, getting another strong lineman will be a good move for them. Your OTC now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 15 overall.
Yeah, this is probably the easiest pick I've gotten to make. I just see a clear need, clear player fit here, and that's Sonny Styles, linebacker, Ohio State. I think he's a better player than Arvell Reese is right now. That doesn't mean I don't think Arvell Reese projects as maybe a better player down the road, but right now, you go watch Ohio State's defense. Sonny Styles is the guy making all the plays, not Arvell Reese. It's Sonny Styles. So Levante David is ancient. Servassier Dennis is, he's a nice little project that they've had some success with. Ultimately, though, I think Styles is a beautiful succession plan for Hall of Famer Levante David here.
I love this pick, and that's exactly who I thought you were going to say with Styles. And no team really needs a linebacker more than Tampa Bay here. It's a perfect fit for them. Styles is a big time athletic presence. He could go higher than this, Brett. So I think this is a fantastic fit. Jets at 16. This is a really interesting one. I want to take Jordan Tyson. I want to take Jordan Tyson. Yeah, I'm taking Jordan Tyson.
Okay.
All right, so we're locking in Jordan Tyson. So you get the Jets end up going with Dante Moore at 2 overall, and then they add Jordan Tyson at 16 overall, combining him with Garrett Wilson, a really, really strong wide receiver pairing. You talk about with the Detroit Lions organization, where a number of these coaches on this staff came from. Detroit had a number of skill position players, Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, starting to stack the offensive talent over in New York. Some question marks as to Breece Hall, where he's playing next year, but I think Tyson and Wilson would make a really, really strong pairing at the wide receiver position, and they need a secondary pass catcher in New York. And when you start looking at what they did last year, getting Mason Taylor, now they get Jordan Tyson, you have Garrett Wilson signed to that contract. Pretty strong skill position talent in New York.
You know why I love it? I hate seeing rookie quarterbacks hung out to dry with bad circumstances. The Jets have a really nice foundation on the offensive line with a handful of young players that all project to be plus starters. Then they have veterans like John Simpson and Josh Myers who are good players as well. Elijah Vera Tucker coming back from an injury. So then you already have Garrett Wilson. You traded for Adonai Mitchell, who I think that might be a hit. And now you add Jordan Tyson. You got 2 tight ends. I love this for Dante. If Dante Moore is going to step into the league and have success right away, it's because the Jets decided to do something like this.
No, it's an easy pick. I think Jordan Tyson could go somewhere in the top 7-8 picks. To get him at 16 overall, really, really strong value for New York, and they're able to add potentially a future impact wide receiver and their long-term answer at quarterback. I think Jets fans would be really excited about this one. Brett, it had to be this way. You get to pick for your Detroit Lions here. I know the last time we drafted together, you had them go with an edge rusher. Are you still there, or are you going to go elsewhere?
So I'm torn between 2 guys, and maybe you can help me talk through this. I'm torn between edge from Auburn, Keldrick Falk, big 6'6", 280, 285 frame at edge. We know they like their size on the D line, right? So it kind of fits the mold of what the Lions were going to want out of an edge rusher opposite Aiden Hutchinson. Kind of got some Marcus Davenport to him, actually, which is kind of funny. And then the other guy I'm looking at here is Kadyn Proctor, left tackle from Alabama. Taylor Decker, I don't know if you heard his kind of year in review interview he did with the media. Doesn't sound good, Theo. The guy is strongly considering retirement. Even if he wasn't, though, I think the Lions need to be vigilant and not getting caught with their pants down like they did with Frank Ragnow's retirement. And they probably need to address that situation earlier rather than later. And quite frankly, Taylor Decker wasn't even good this year. So maybe we add a body here. And I just look at Kadyn Proctor, and I'm really scared of Alabama offensive tackles. They just haven't really worked out in the league, but I'm also not a helmet scout. And I do think Kadyn Proctor is he's a massive dude who's athletic. They run freaking wildcat plays with this guy, Theo. Like I think the Lions and Dan Campbell are going to be obsessed with this 360-pound offensive tackle who runs wildcat runs. I mean, this is insane. So I think this is a fun pick for them.
Yeah, I think Proctor is going to be in the mix for Dallas at 12. And I've seen Proctor being projected to be drafted lower than where we're talking about him going. But you just nailed it. People are going to fall in love with the athletic traits of Kadyn Proctor, where you 366 with a really good vertical, incredible athletic traits. He was a Bruce Feldman's Freaks List guy. I love the pick. I think Kadyn Proctor makes a lot of sense here for Detroit. Right. Really, really fun one there. It's now we're staying in the NFC North. Another team that sort of could go in multiple directions here with the Minnesota Vikings. A little disappointing for, I'm sure, Vikings fans to not have access to even being in the wheelhouse for a Jeremiyah Love. I think them adding a long-term answer at running back, maybe through free agency, might be in the cards, especially if it's still going to be J.J. McCarthy next year. Make that offensive ecosystem really, really fantasy friendly to him, and especially stylistically friendly, like he had at Michigan with a really strong running game around him. So I'm not sure which way Minnesota is going to go. I think ultimately this is a great spot for Jermod McCoy. Minnesota takes McCoy, who is arguably the best cornerback in this draft class, but missed this season. He's going to be ready for the upcoming NFL season. But Jermod McCoy, if we would have backtracked to a year ago, I think maybe he would have gone a little bit higher than this if we were projecting this draft class. Jermod McCoy, cornerback out of Tennessee, goes to Minnesota with the 18th overall pick.
I love it. If I was picking Minnesota, that's who I would have picked. So you nailed it there. You pretty much just stole my sheet I'm working off of here, you know?
Love it. I love when we're locked in, man.
Yeah, man. All right, I'm on the clock with the Panthers here at 19. There's so many directions they could go. I was thinking wide receiver, and I was even thinking
Yep.
about doing the unthinkable and maybe a Makai Lemon, who I don't think is a first round pick. However, I don't think they can reasonably take a wide receiver in the first round 3 years in a row. So I think they need to find a guy on day 2 this year to help Tet McMillan and Bryce Young. They need an edge rusher is what they need. And I know, what's his name? Their defensive coordinator, Ijiro Evero. He really prefers these speed guys. I'm going to go Cashius Howell, edge out of Texas A&M over Falk, just because the team fit is a little bit better. So Cashius Howell, edge rusher from Texas A&M. He was very productive this year. He had a 12 sack season. I think as a freshman, he had 10 sacks for them. So I think this is a really good fit. He's 250 pound, really good ghost move, speed rusher type. Pairs with Nick Scorton really well, and slowly but surely the Panthers are building a little bit of a D-line here.
Yeah, I love this pick, and I think Makai Lemon would be in the mix here at 19 overall. I'm higher on Makai Lemon than Brett is, but I think that he's going to go somewhere in the first round. We'll continue to argue about Makai Lemon throughout the offseason, I'm sure, but Carolina getting an edge rusher makes a lot of sense. Cashius Howell, I mean, you talk about a player who's been productive, not only at the SEC level, but I believe he led the MAC in sacks 2 seasons ago. Another guy who transferred up and was able to sort of deliver for a very big-time defense. So I love this one. Carolina gets a potential impact edge rusher. A player can really get to the quarterback in Cashius Howell. So I like that one a lot. Dallas here, it's almost like, I took Rueben Bain here at 12, but there's so much defensive talent on this side of the ball here. I wonder if they could double tap here, Brett. I don't think they go Keldrick Falk here and double tap at the edges, but I wonder if they go with one of these interior linemen. And I actually think I'm going to take a riser here in Amari Washington out of Oregon, who I think is going to rise up draft boards. Obviously, we've talked about how I like Caden McDonald, and I know you do as well out of Ohio State. But I think Washington is going to keep rising up draft boards. I think he's going to go somewhere inside these top 20 overall picks. Oregon obviously shut down Texas Tech. Washington had such a strong year for them. Massive interior presence. And Dallas adding Washington and adding Bain in the same draft class. Some real talent up front.
Yeah, that's an embarrassment of riches there at D tackle with Kenny Clark, Osa Odigizua, and now Quinnen Williams. Adding Washington to that is great. Kenny Clark obviously getting a little old in the tooth there, so Washington probably slides in and fills that spot. They can play Osa as a base end as well. So Dallas rebuilding the D line. I kind of love it.
OTC here with the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21 overall. We're recording this before Pittsburgh plays Houston on Monday Night Football. That should be a really, really fun one. But what way will Pittsburgh be going in this NFL draft?
This is a frustrating one. They have some needs here. Their secondary is completely falling apart. However, you can't help but look at this wide receiver room and be embarrassed for them. Like, I legitimately have secondhand embarrassment looking at this wide receiver room. It was bad with DK in the lineup. It was, gosh, they were playing MVS, Scotty Miller, and Calvin Austin. There was another guy that played that I was cracking up at, Ben Skoranek. This is their wide receiver room. So I think we got to go wide receiver here. Let's go with my guy Denzel Boston. I really like Boston. I think he's an inside-out player. You can play him wherever you want. Big, long frame, dominates the middle of the field, and he's a mother effer after the catch to tackle. So I think he kind of pairs well with what DK offers. Kind of the way Arthur Smith was scheming it up this year too, with a lot of these catch and run opportunities for the tight ends and for DK. I think he's going to fit right in there.
Yeah, they need a wide receiver. I know you've been very high on Denzel Boston. I think this next pick for me is a pretty easy one. We've seen LA draft offensive linemen with Harbaugh. We've seen them draft last year Amari Hampton, skill position player. We saw them draft Ladd McConkey in the second round the year before. I think they lean into the interior defensive line this year. And I think that they go with the former Michigan coach drafts another Ohio State lineman, Caden McDonald, the big nose tackle out of Ohio State. Another Buckeye goes off the board here. they get another sort of massive presence. So I think we'll start to see these interior linemen go off the board. I had Washington at 20. Now we're going Kadyn McDonald, D-tackle, Ohio State, at 22 to the LA Chargers.
I love me some Caden McDonald. He's like a more explosive version of Jamari Caldwell, a guy they drafted last year. But that system that they run there requires a couple of those guys. So I love this fit. It's a great fit. Everyone wanted them to take Derek Harmon last year, if you remember. Harmon, a little bit more of a pass rusher than McDonald, but still similar role they're going to fill there. So I love that. Let's see. I'm on the clock, 23 with the Eagles?
Yeah, and this feels like a Howie Roseman pick. He always picks the top guy on the board. There's one guy that sort of stands out. I don't know if you will go the same way here, but I think there's a player you've mentioned before that's still OTC.
That's where I'm going. I think this is totally a Howie pick. It's going to be Keldrick Falk, edge from Auburn. Is that who you're thinking?
Exactly who I was thinking.
Yeah. So best player available for sure. The interesting thing here, though, is it's not really the mold of edge defender they've used in the past. However, Keldrick Falk plays very similar to that of like a Milton Williams, who they lost in free agency to the New England Patriots last year. So maybe they use him as a base end /3 technique on pass downs kind of guy who can also, he can rush a passer from the edge as well. I'm not saying he can't, but scheme fit, they're gonna have to get a little creative to make it work. But I just don't see Howie passing on this talent here at pick 23.
Yeah, it's a classic Howie Roseman pick where everybody will give him an A grade the next day for taking a player that maybe should have gone 10 picks earlier. Keldrick Falk, big time athlete. I keep bringing up the Bruce Feldman list. I love those freaks list guys, and Falk was way up there. So Falk goes to Philadelphia. They need an edge rusher, and they get a very highly ranked one at 23 overall. 24 overall. This sort of landed perfectly for me. I dropped my bold predictions, Brett. You can listen to those over at Fantasy Football Daily. I think it's going to be a busy offseason for the Buffalo Bills at the wide receiver position. Not sure how they'll do in this opening round against Jacksonville, but they need to figure out wide receiver. Whiffed completely on the Keon Coleman trade. Gotten a lot out of Khalil Shakir over the years. But I'm predicting that Buffalo attacks wide receiver in free agency and or a trade, and they also consider drafting one here at 24. Makai Lemon at 24 overall, we're locking him in. Potentially big-time target earner at the NFL level. Potentially can play a lot of the slot. I know that, excuse me, I know this is a lot of the Khalil Shakir position, but he's a upgrade over Shakir. I think that the dream scenario for Makai Lemon enthusiasts is saying names like Amon-Ra St. Brown. I know you're not there, but we're going to break Brett Whitefield down over these next couple of months. We're going to get him on Team Makai Lemon by the time we draft at the actual big NFL draft. So Makai Lemon, I think if Makai Lemon ends up a Buffalo Bill, fantasy managers are going to be standing on their heads. He's going to steam up in dynasty rookie drafts. A chance to potentially be Josh Allen's number one target for many years to come. And he projects as a target earner, Brett. So I love this fit for what they need, and I love this value for a player that I think is going to be a good NFL player.
If you would have said like KC Concepcion, I would have been like, yeah, let's go, man. But no, at pick 24, I'm way more comfortable with Makai Lemon here than, say, where I saw him going earlier in the process, which is like top 10. That's a no for me. But back into the first round here, I can live with it. Although I'm more comfortable probably in the 30s or 40s. But anyways, don't need to split hairs. So pick 25 here, Chicago. They need defense. They don't have really any defensive playmakers or any game changers. I say that, and they lead the league in turnovers. So that's kind of funny, right? I don't mean that. I just mean reliable stars that they can count on the defensive side of the ball. So I think they need an investment here on defense. I'm looking at guys like TJ Parker, who I'm a big fan of out of Clemson. I think he's a really developed pass rusher. Kind of had a little bit of a down year this year, though, but his 2024 tape is exceptional. I am going to go with a different Clemson player, though. I'm going to go Avion Terrell, cornerback Clemson. A lot of people think this is the best corner in the draft. I'm not one of them. However, I do think he's a very good player. And I know what the Bears are kind of doing on defense there with Dennis Allen. They like these interchangeable parts that can play a little bit of zone, play a little bit of man. I think he had 3 starts at nickel this year, actually. Has played mostly outside, but had 3 starts at nickel this year. So big fan of Avion Terrell and in this fit with Chicago. I think he helps them out a lot. Could potentially start in the nickel for them with Nashawn Wright and Jalen Johnson on the outside.
Yeah, AJ Terrell's brother, Avion Terrell, I think he's a first-round pick. I have him as the third-ranked cornerback in this class, but again, corner's a harder position for me to really evaluate. I think Terrell is a first-round talent. I think this is a really, really good fit for what Chicago needs. I think I agree with you that they're going to go with a defensive player, whether it's a lineman or in the secondary. I think that probably makes the most sense. I will say that I do think that there's going to be some people organizationally that want to draft another offensive lineman just to keep building on that strength, get that Ben Johnson offense rolling. But they hit last year on the offensive line, so it's not a pressing need for them. 26 overall, San Francisco, another pick that is really, really fantasy friendly. Juwan Jennings is going to be a free agent. Ricky Pearsall can't stay on a field, and the team's going to be moving off of Brandon Ayuk. I've got a player here in KC Concepcion that I'm very, very high on, and I think when you start talking about him in a Kyle Shanahan offense, there's a lot to be really, really excited about with Concepcion. Transferred from NC State to Texas A&M, had a really strong season, and Brett, he was also used on some manufactured rushing plays that I think Shanahan could use with him. Concepcion, I think, would be another player where fantasy managers would love the landing spot. Brock Purdy gets another really strong weapon in KC Concepcion, wide receiver, Texas A&M at 26 overall.
Yeah, I love that pick. That's a great one. I mean, I think they're going to consider O-line for sure, but if they don't, a guy like Concepcion's awesome. He has the requisite dynamic ability that Kyle Shanahan wanted as wide receiver. So I like that.
27,
Houston Texans. What they need is a running back or offensive line, but there's not a ton here. Actually, let's do this. Let's go. Man. Gosh, this is tough, man.
Yeah, it's a really tough one.
This is tough because I mean, I know they just drafted Ariante Ursery in the second round, so I don't think they'll go right or a left tackle necessarily. You know what? Let's go. Emmanuel Pregnon, guard Oregon. I think he's going to be an ascending player. I've seen most people having him as like a late second round pick right now. I don't know about all that, man. I think offensive linemen typically rise up the board. His season, like his 2025 tape is awesome, like legitimately awesome. So I think he's going to rise up, be a late first rounder here, and I think the Texans are a great spot for him.
Yeah, I remember we talked about him. I had him initially in the first round in my last mock draft over at Fantasy Points. Yeah. I think he's going to end up here. There's a bunch of these linemen that I think we'll have a better idea about sort of after the Senior Bowl. You talk about Pregnon, talk about Lomu out of Utah. I think that Dunker out of Iowa is interesting. There's a few of these offensive linemen, and I think that you could throw all of them into the mix where they're all going to go between like pick 27 and pick 40. But I think that Pregnon is a really strong interior presence here. And I think the NFL is going to value these Oregon Ducks. I think there's going to be a lot of them drafted this year and drafted very, very early. We already have a few in the first round right now. Might have another one coming up. I'm back OTC with the Cleveland Browns. Brett hated my last pick. The last pick I made for Cleveland was Arvell Reese. I could tell Brett didn't like that one, so I'm going to try to get back in his good graces. Wide receiver would make a lot of sense here, but I don't think there's a player that I necessarily want to like cram in. I think I'm actually going to go back to the offensive line once again, and I think we get a run on offensive linemen maybe here, and I'm going to go with Jennings Dunker out of Iowa, who I think can play tackle and also can play guard here. I'm going to lock him in. It's about right for him. It's not necessarily an exciting pick, but Cleveland has two upcoming free agents on the offensive line. They have multiple interior offensive linemen who are 30 plus. They need to add some youth and talent on the O-line, and I think Dunker gives them flexibility.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I mean, I would have considered Lumu too. I do think Dunker is probably a better player right now. I think Lumu probably projects with the higher ceiling, however, but that's neither here nor there. So let's go. I'm 29 with the Rams here. What did I do the first time? I went with offensive lineman, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
you
Spencer
had
Fano.
you had Spencer Fano from Utah at 13.
Yeah. Let's go. Man, they need cornerback help, but my best cornerback available is Brandon Cease, and he doesn't really fit what they do. Let me go. CJ Allen, linebacker, Georgia.
I like that one.
Yeah, this guy's super dynamic. And for this style of defense, this upfield attacking defensive line, they're going to stunt and twist you to death. You need a linebacker with range and the ability to clean up some messes. CJ Allen has got that in droves. So I'm going CJ Allen, linebacker, Georgia here.
Yeah, one of the draft's top linebackers, all SEC player. I think CJ Allen's a really, really clean fit. And with that front seven that they have, it's another potential impact player. So I love that one. Yeah, cornerback seems pretty flat here. With New England, we could go with a wide receiver. We could go with an edge rusher, or I could go with an offensive lineman. I think that Ioane out of Oregon is rising up draft boards. I think Caleb Banks is interesting here. But I'm going to go back to the offensive line. We saw Pregnan go at 27. Dunker goes at 28. And a lot of times, Brett, we see these cleanups at the end of the round where we see a positional run. So I'll lean into it like we were in a regular NFL draft. They have an all-world player in Drake May. They need to keep him healthy. They hit on a number of offensive line picks last year, and I think they look to do it again with Caleb Lomu out of Utah at 30 overall. Let's lock him in.
I love it. Lomu's primarily played left tackle. Actually, I think he's really only played left tackle for Utah. And they just drafted Will Campbell. However, that doesn't matter. When you're in the Patriots situation, just draft offensive linemen, figure out the rest later, You'll get your best five some way, somehow. I think there's a chance Will Anderson still maybe plays center one day, but even if he doesn't, Lomu could learn right tackle. So we're cooking here.
Two more picks, Brett.
Denver at 31. Man, okay. Denver at 31. They need. You know what I think the weak point of their defense is? You've seen their defense kind of taking a little bit of a step back the last few weeks. It's when teams can establish the run against them. I think that's been a big issue. It was an issue last year as well. I'm tempted to go Christian Miller here, D tackle from Georgia. I'm not out on Caleb Banks, by the way, but I can't. This guy's averaged less than 200 snaps across 5 seasons. 200 snaps a season. I can't. Injuries have been a huge issue. I don't know that. When you're in the business of risk management, I don't know that you can take a guy like Caleb Banks in the first round. So let's go. Let's do it. Let's go Christian Miller, D tackle, Georgia. He's a guy I think is going to be an ascending player too. Not a lot of people talking about him right now, but big 3 technique. Georgia D tackles recently have had a ton of success in the NFL. I think there's an element of helmet scouting that happens in league circles, and it's a system thing. And I think the system at Georgia's working for these interior guys. So Christian Miller, D tackle, Georgia.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. Seattle at 32. And again, the draft order could change. Right now, this draft order is projecting Denver and Seattle to meet in the Super Bowl, the top 2 seeds. Seattle at 32 overall. Brett, this was the best turnaround that we've seen on the offensive line in recent memory. They were really, really really were up there in terms of the least amount of sacks given up this year. The offense took a huge step forward. They've answered a lot of questions. Last year's draft class, they had a number of hits here, really big time hits, and I think they're wide open at 32 overall. If they do win the Super Bowl and they pick at 32 overall, I think they're going to take best player available, and I think they're just going to lean into the strengths here. TJ Parker still on the board here. I think just becomes a tremendous value to get this sort of an edge rusher, this sort of premium type pick that we were talking about him in contention to be drafted like somewhere in that 17 to 25 range. Get him down at the end of the first round. So not necessarily a need for them. They could use a corner. They could use an interior lineman. But I think ultimately you just take the talent and take TJ Parker here to end out the first round.
Yeah, I love it, man. You look at it's just an embarrassment of riches in the D line. But DeMarcus Lawrence, look at the impact he's had on this team this year. Well, he's older. He's an older player, and so I think you want to kind of keep that skill set available to you, though, even as Lawrence continues to age or even potentially walks away in a year or two here. So I think getting a TJ Parker in there, very similar player. I'm going to have TJ Parker a lot higher than 32 on my big board, but that's okay. Sometimes things like this happen. So I think this is a great pick, Theo.
Yeah, this was a really, really fun process. We've got to do this more often. We're going to break down positions. We're going to break down NFL team needs. We're going to cover it all right here on the 2026 NFL Draft Podcast. Brett, what else do you have going on right now?
Yeah, you can check out First Read Podcast. It's Joe Marino and I. We'll also do some draft stuff on there, but we really, in the offseason especially, we focus on team building from the big lens. You know, we break down free agency quite a bit. Salary cap stuff, coaching changes, all ball talk, all advanced analytics and film. That's pretty much, obviously the data suite too, Fantasy Points data suite. That's my baby. So check that out if you haven't yet. Data.fantasypoints.com. We have the early bird special going on right now. We also have the best projections in the business. If you're going to get a subscription, you get access to that. So those are pretty much my babies. First Read and the Fantasy Points data suite.
Yeah, highly recommend everything Brett does. Resident ball knower here at Fantasy Points. Make sure you're checking out Fantasy Football Daily. Not doing 4 episodes a week like we did in season, but we're still dropping multiple episodes a week over at Fantasy Football Daily. Also, School of Scott Barrett, and myself. Brett Whitefield filled in for me when I was on vacation. Really big appreciation there, Brett, to you and Ryan Heath for doing that. And then Dynasty Life, where very dynasty-focused podcast. Brett's been a frequent guest over there. We've got you covered. No one's doing it better in the podcast game than Fantasy Points. Make sure you check out fantasypoints.com for our early bird special. Brett and I are going to be putting a ton of NFL draft-related content on the site that's going to help you know this class inside and out. We're only a few weeks away from the Senior Bowl. Can't wait to cover that. Can't wait for this entire offseason. Make sure you subscribe in. Make sure you hit that like button, and we'll see you soon.